Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Point Podcast. Tonight, we're going to be doing our finale recap of episodes 9 and 10 of Your Honor. Interesting show, interesting ending. We'll get to that as it goes on, but Tuesday night seems to be the storm day. So whenever me and Shamus get to chatting, it's always snowing or doing something outside. But Shay, how was your family day, and how is the storm down there in St. John?
Good, just a lot of freezing rain. It was a nice little chilly day. I don't mind the rain a little bit. It's kind of just relaxing me. Like I could just sit here and work, and it kind of puts my mind at ease. But I know everyone's a little bit different. Good, family day was awesome. It was my grandmother's birthday, so I spent most of the day with her, and that was excellent. Get to see a little family in such a dearing time like this. So I'm happy. What about you? How'd you spend your family day? I know you love it so much.
Yeah, it's my favorite holiday. I said to my mother that I felt like it's been family day for a year because I've seen them basically every day for a year, and she didn't really like that comment. Um,
I can
but
imagine
yeah, I
why.
don't think, to be honest, I don't think I saw them yesterday. So that, not
Well,
purposely, just
it's like you said though. You probably saw them a couple times over the weekend anyway,
yeah.
so it's not like
Sunday I went there for supper. So that was it's family day every Sunday. I'm there every day, every Sunday for supper. So
exactly.
they're sick of me. So it's about time they just say, beat it for a day. So that was good for them. Um, but yeah, we're finishing Your Honor tonight. Yeah, the show's been interesting so far. Critics have really hated it. I haven't been a huge supporter of it, of some of the writing. Obviously, Bryan Cranston's a fantastic actor. But what do you make of it? And heading into episode 9, what were your kind of expectations coming in?
Well, we kind of both me and you both kind of dogged the last couple episodes, I would say. So I'm always looking for like a good bounce back episode, especially where these were the last two. I was thinking we're probably going to see, maybe a wrap up of this court case, but as we'll talk about later, it's kind of been still ongoing throughout the both the ninth and 10th episode, which is a little frustrating, but I mean, I guess it's a pivotal point in the show. But no, I didn't mind it. I kind of had high hopes, and all these little secrets. You know that something's going to happen, and somebody's going to bring up the dirt, and somebody's going to find out more than they should. So
Mhm.
I was really, really looking forward to, I guess, this, a big reveal per se, but by somebody close to him, whether it was Nancy Costello, Charlie, or the lawyer, Delamere.
Yeah, I had something similar. You knew that Adam was not going to go through the whole show without being caught, even though I found in episode 9 he was hardly in the episode, which was
Yeah.
strange to me. Because then episode 10 he obviously becomes center stage, but it was just strange to me how they did that. But um, episode 9 starts again odd for me. We saw when Carlo Baxter was arrested, he had this accomplice named Joey who got away with some drugs and some money. And he's kind of in this halfway house slash, the drug house. Basically, it's run down, and he's getting home, but he sees that the Baxter family has found him. They know where he is, and they're tracking him. He has to leave this. He's breaking a window. He tries to get out, but he falls too far, breaks his ankle, falls on the ground. But as he starts to run away, he sees his only option is he sees cops, and he decides to turn himself in rather than face the mercy of the Baxters.
Yeah, and I was thinking, he mentions this later on, Juggy. He says he's a close personal friend to Carlo, and he says that the Baxters have took him in like they were one of his own. Why do you
Right.
think he's so scared of being caught by them? Like, is it a loose for them? Is it a loose end? To clean up this whole desire deal that went so poorly because Carlo got caught, or what was your reasoning for turning himself in? Do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe a loose end, just because he'd be the only one to corroborate that story. Otherwise, they can just plead the fifth, right? And they can just say that didn't happen. Um, but maybe they're worried because he was a junkie, and they're like, this guy's a bit flaky. We don't know how we can deal with him.
Mm,
But it was strange how he was so terrified. Maybe because he left the scene. Maybe because he was there and he didn't, get arrested with Carlo. He let him take the fall. So maybe he thought, okay, they're gonna be mad and they'll kill me because I didn't fess up like Carlo did.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I agree. That was strange. So he turns himself in, and it's kind of an interesting scene because he's got a broken ankle. He's sitting there talking to the cops, kind of talking in circles. They're kind of worried that he's on drugs. And he's like, nope, I'm not. But, they got to be in court in 15 minutes. And Delamere tells him, let's go. Like, I gotta get back in there. Tell me something or you're done. Like, you're back on the street, and then you're the Baxter's problem then. And he says, I know what happened the night of Kofi's death. And he says, Kofi came to Carlo's cell and he killed him. And obviously, this is a big revelation. And he says, I'm telling you this, but I know so much more about this family. And give me a good deal, and I'm willing to tell you everything that I know.
Yeah, and he really even goes as far as to say that Gina, the mother, was the one who orchestrated the whole thing, and could tie her into this as well. So you're right, he holds a lot of power because he knows all these dirty secrets that that he's seen over the whatever it is 20, 25 years of being friends with Carlo, right? Best friends, he says.
Yeah, some best friend. But he's clearly on drugs. They kind of gotta deal with him. But so they bring this to the court, and they want him as a witness. Obviously, he's got so much testimony. It's gonna be so interesting to the courts, and the Baxters are not prepared for this. But they hear, Jimmy's sitting there in the courtroom, and he hears that Joey's going to testify, and automatically he starts to freak out a little bit.
Yeah, I think he definitely deserves to have a panic attack. And I guess this is maybe why the Baxters were looking for him, because at the end of the day, like, he's that final nail in Carlo's coffin, most likely, because
right,
he's got so much dirt himself that it's either flip on my friend or I'm probably gonna die, right? Like he says, I want witness protection.
mm-hmm.
You kind of put me somewhere warm. But anyways, he is really like the kind of the final piece. And you're right, they didn't the Baxter clan didn't know about it, so their lawyer's not ready. And we soon see that Jimmy's kind of expressing, I don't know where, but he's expressing his concerns to the judge. And he makes it very well known, like, you got to do something about this, or you got to put him in a position to, so we can take care of him.
Yeah. So yeah, he's freaked, like you said. He's got a warranted panic attack, and he goes to the judge and says, so you have access to the courtroom, keep him here, but tonight, find a way for us to get in here, and we'll take care of it. And, tongue in cheek saying, we're going to go in there and kill him. But the judge doesn't seem comfortable with this, because obviously that could possibly be leaked back to him. It's in his courtroom. It doesn't look good. And we'll go into this later, but he takes a different approach to getting what the Baxters ultimately want.
Yeah, and it was ballsy. I think it was a ballsy move in the first place, and it was very sideways, or not sideways, but just sideswiped me, because I had no idea what was going on and where he was going with this.
Me either.
But yeah, it was interesting. It was a nice little play by him. It was I would say a Walter White move, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you think of in Breaking Bad when Jesse and the little kid, and he gives him the flowers that are poisonous, and to ultimately get Jesse to turn on Gus. I mean, that something similar here.
Exactly.
At the same time, I mentioned Adam's not really a key fixture in this episode, but he is at the beginning. He's at a coffee shop with Fia. They're, clearly a couple now. They're very close. And Franny, his teacher, just shows up. And she's very weird. She asks Fia about 100 questions about what's her name, her family. She finds out she's a Baxter. And then, she says, sometimes decisions can really have a lasting impact on you long term. And she kind of leaves by saying, nice to meet you, Fia. And it's a really weird exchange.
Yeah, I think it's kind of it's a bitch slap to Adam, kind of an FU, like, hey, I know now. And more importantly, like, finding out that that she's Rocco's sister on top of that makes it huge, because she's like, okay, not only do I know your dirty little secret, but you're also kind of a little pervert, in the sense that you're going out with this guy's sister.
Right.
So it was interesting. It was kind of her making herself known. We kind of tie this back into the last episode that we were on, saying that Franny wasn't really in it at all, and now we see her a little bit more in this episode, and maybe a tiny bit the next. But yeah, again, it was weird to even have her in the first place, kind of.
Yeah, it was just unnecessary the way it went with the plot and the way we'll talk about episode 10, how it ends, but she has no impact on it. So it's kind of strange. Another one for
Yeah.
me, Shay, this was just put into the middle of the episode and it's part of both episode 9 and 10. And I think it has I don't know why it's there. We find out that the judge's wife was having an affair and we knew she's dead. We kind of figured she was killed by a black man because she was in the hood or she was killed by a black person. We kind of
Yeah.
you took that. But I don't know why that was part of the show. Nancy Costello comes to him with this new information, but I don't know. I don't understand why. Like I literally wrote my notes. Why? I don't know why this was why, because it doesn't add anything to the plot or it's not even that interesting.
No, you're right. And like if there was some way of tying this to the Desire Gang and tying it to
Right.
episode 10, it would be appealing. But the
Mhm.
fact that they just left that a loose end as well is just so weird to me. I don't know. And this new character that Nancy brings, she said, this is the guy, and obviously he plays a part in the Desire Game somehow. We find out later, I think, right?
Yeah, he's like I don't. He was part of Desire, but I don't think he was like. I think he was just kind of a guy they didn't even really
Okay.
like that much. Like,
I see. I see. Okay, so maybe I'm getting that mixed up with the guy that Eugene finds about later on. Um, but yeah, no. So it is super weird, and yeah, Michael's whole thing was, oh, we got to keep this from Adam. He tells his mother-in-law that we have to keep this from Adam. Like this, like he should never know about this. Like this will ruin his perception of his mother and what he thinks of her. Um, but yeah, no. So I'm 100% with you on this one. Like I kind of was just all question marks, especially how it didn't really lead to anything productive.
right? Yeah, it was just strange. If it was tied to the plot at the end, I would have said, okay, this is interesting, and it's how the show started, him running in the cemetery, but it just didn't play out that way. Um, Jimmy Baxter kind of talks to the judge. He's walking her outside the courtroom. Nancy Costello tells him to leave him and Adam alone. And this is where Jimmy finds out basically that Adam is the judge's son who's dating his daughter. He knew it was Adam, but I don't think he knew that the judge's son was named Adam because he had that look on his face like, wait, Adam, who's Adam? And it was interesting because he kind of had to keep his cool.
Yeah, and you figure this was going to come out sooner or later.
Yeah.
But for Nancy, I mean, like, come on, like clearly he had no intentions of doing anything to Adam. Maybe he was trying to scare Michael, obviously, because he's the judge. But
Right.
yeah, she kind of sewers them by throwing that piece of information out there.
Even giving his name, like
Yeah.
you shouldn't, just leave the judge and his family alone. You don't have to like putting his name out there. Just makes it easier for him to possibly track him and find out where he is.
I agree.
So yeah, we'll go to the courtroom before we go to Desire because there's some stuff in this episode with Desire, but it really doesn't have a big impact on the show. So like we said, the judge was talking to the Baxters, and I thought that Joey was going to get killed in the cell by one of Jimmy's goons. However, it didn't happen that way. He tells the two lawyers that he wants to talk to Joey before the trial, make sure he's okay, make sure he's not on drugs, and that he's stable enough to take the stand. And this is a really interesting scene because he goes back, he sees Joey's ankles broken, he gives him his shoes to make it feel better, and he starts giving him water. And he says, drink the whole glass. And he says, when you're out there, you get nervous, you're gonna have that thing of water, just keep drinking it. That's kind of your safe haven. And little did we know that when he gets on the stand, Joey has been drugged by the judge.
It was huge. It's a greasy move by the
Yeah.
judge. It just like I don't even know if there's a scale between getting to heaven and hell. He must have percept that plunge right down
Yeah.
because it is bad to think that he drugged a guy who was already hooked on drugs. Like
Yes,
this
he's a
isn't a guy.
junkie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a guy who's probably just gonna I must have got drugged once. Like he's probably gonna be addicted to that too. And what's funny is he drugged them with Django, their dog's medication, and he
Yeah.
put like a lot. I feel like he put a lot in there,
I
right?
think he put 4 or 5 in there.
Yeah, and yeah, it was weird because you don't find out about this until he pours the water out, and then he shows that he's been chopping up his these pills
Hmm.
in his desk. So, and then you kind of see him cleaning up all the evidence, and it's just not a good look.
No, character, obviously a judge and just a character who will do anything. And this is the lowest of the low. I mean, I don't know if you watched the whole thing in Sons of Anarchy, but in the first episode when Gemma gives the needle to Jax's wife Wendy,
Yeah,
that's something similar here, where you're just basically giving a junkie drugs. You're leaving them with drugs, saying, "Don't take this." Like 9 times out of
yeah, that,
10, a junkie's going to be taking it.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, not that this one was known to him, but by having given the drugs, they did so that way that the defendant and Carlo's lawyer could question him, but
Yeah.
the accused couldn't. And basically, I don't know if this is a real thing by law, Juggy, but the fact that both sides couldn't have their questions with him basically means that like that witness is a write off, and like you don't even get to put that in
Mhm.
his words. Like you got to forget that Joey ever existed.
I looked it up and it's true. Both sides have to have at least the option. Like obviously in court sometimes one side will just say no further questions, Your Honor, or whatever if they don't think it'll help them. But yeah, you have to have at least have the option. And when he's on the stand, he passes out and he can hardly put a sentence together. I mean, he's making no sense, drinking just gallons of water, and Jimmy Baxter just flashes this judge this evil smile because he didn't have to do it, but he also knows that the judge is, as of right now, following through on what he said he'd do.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was just a bad move by the judge. I mean, he's got to do what he's got to do for his son, but that was obviously a very bad one there.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned this just briefly, but Eugene, he does play a bigger role in these last 2 episodes. He's kind of been this quiet kid so far, but he's in Desire. He's kind of getting in the middle of it, and he's actually running the books. He's kind of doing the accounting for Desire, and he tells Big Mo that he wants to do the numbers. He gets it, he understands it, and he can do a better job at it. And that includes wants to start he pitches some money laundering schemes that they can do to make money. So clearly Eugene's not just this dumb, chubby kid here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they even make a point to say like, oh, like you're probably brighter than your brother. Like we're gonna keep you tight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Lee Delamere kind of brings this up later when they're having dinner about keeping them close. Um, Ultimately, because I think that they know that they were the ones who set up Kofi in the first place.
Right.
So this could lead back to him, and he's really the only trace of Kofi they have left. So it's better to keep him close than to give him away. But you're right. Yeah, I was like, what? Like like he's got like, oh yeah, we got to there's tons of churches that need new roofs, and
Mm-hmm.
you can get a check off that donations. I was like, holy shit! Like this is the real deal, and this guy's probably not more than 15, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a young kid for sure. And you know, he's smarter than most of Desire. And I think they start to realize it that this kid is an asset. Kofi was just kind of hired muscle, so to speak. He stole cars and he was a guy that they were willing to part with at any time.
Yeah, and this is what I come back to earlier about talking about. I thought who I the Mister Mistress whatever of Robin Donziato was. He brings up it was actually no, sorry, it was Little Mo who brings up this Rudy person, or Rudy,
Right. Yeah.
and he says it, and then Eugene's like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't got to know that, or you're
You don't
not
need
far
to you
along."
don't need to learn everything today or something like that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. He said that.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, and that kind of just introduced that character who we I learn more in episode 10.
No, that's true. And yeah, it was just weird how they do this in the last couple episodes. But so then Franny is back. She's talking to Adam. She tells him that she loves him, which who doesn't love to hear that? And but she will tell Fia the truth if he doesn't step up and stop seeing her. And it, this was a threat from Franny, really, because she said it in a nice tone, but she also said, don't put me in a corner, Adam, that I have to make a tough decision, because I'm gonna do the honorable thing here.
Yeah, yeah,
And
a little bit of oh, I
yes.
was gonna say a little bit of jealousy going on there, and
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
she takes a little too far. But this goes back to Adam and him spilling the beans maybe too early and having to get that off his chest in episodes 1 or 2 or whenever it is. Like he shouldn't have told Franny in the first place, and now this is coming back to haunt him. Probably months later.
Right. So it's at this point that you see this kind of weird scene where Fia's with her parents and they bring this priest in. And I was like, okay, is this like the intervention I'm going to walk into in a couple weeks here? Like, I was like, I'm scared. But it's like this priest and they're trying to get her to love Jesus and all this stuff. And she just blurts out, I love Adam. I don't love God. Like, I don't care about him. And her parents are like, you love him. And like, it's a kind of a cringy scene because it doesn't really add anything. I just found it so weird that they included it.
Yeah, it is. It is probably pretty difficult, and I don't know. We see a little bit of Adam and Fia throughout the whole series, but I just don't feel like we see enough of them to be at this point in a relationship.
Right.
There's such thing as young dumb love. I think we've all been there at some point, but to watch it and yeah, they have a couple goofy interactions. Yeah, they have a little smooch once in a while, but I don't know if I see enough to think that they're in love. And that's, I think, a huge flaw within the show, is that they were trying to push that a little too much at the end. And I mean, ultimately it brings Adam, closer to her, but and then towards the end of the show, you know, something else. But yeah, I don't know. It was just a weird, cringy thing. I'm on your page.
Yeah. The whole religion thing and then the love, I was like, okay, it's gonna scare me. This scene was scaring me. But one scene I found particularly interesting, and I thought it was well done. The defense lawyer is trying to coach Carlo on self-defense. That's what they're gonna use when they go into court. That's what they're gonna plead, that it was self-defense, even though I think that's crazy. I don't think that would ever work. Kofi would have been like 100 pounds soaking wet. I mean, Carlo's a big dude, but nevertheless, that's what they're using. And he's kind of asking him some questions like, how'd you feel when you saw him come to your cell? And he goes, I wanted to fucking kill him. And then he's like, no, that's not it. And he goes, what? He said, you got to say terrified. And he goes, I'm not saying terrified. And he goes, you got to say it. And he goes, no, I'm not. And he's terrible. He didn't get it. Like I don't think he's so stupid. Like he didn't realize, okay, just say this. Like I'm trying to get you off here and you're going to
Mhm.
screw it up by being this macho man that just can't handle, being less of a man, so to speak, right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean and this is leading up to pretty much the biggest witness. I don't know if he's called a witness when he's defending himself on trial, but it's the biggest person on the podium by far, because I mean he's the one that's going to sway the fate of what happens to him if
Right.
he puts on a Leonardo DiCaprio performance. He's probably going to walk out of there scot free, and if he doesn't, then he's good as dead.
Yeah. Yeah. And so he's doing that. They think it's going to be fine because They just got to convince him he didn't kill Kofi. Kofi killed Rocco. That's it. But
Mhm.
Lee is still representing Kofi. She said that about 4 or 5 times in the show. Just because he's dead doesn't mean I'm going to stop representing my client.
Mhm.
And she finds out that Kofi could not have killed Rocco because he was taking his GED at the time of the murder. So she finds out this. She tells Eugene. Eugene says, "Yeah, I knew that already. Like Kofi did not kill Rocco Baxter. Like I know it." And he says he took the car. She goes to Little Mo because she talks to Eugene, and he couldn't have killed. He didn't. He took the car the next day. So Lee is starting to get more and more information about Kofi and getting proof that he did not kill Rocco Baxter because he wasn't there, and he took the car the next day, not the day of the murder.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I was so confused when she first opened this letter with his I forget what they call in the States, but just your when you do those tests, your stat, is it stat or
Like
what do you write when you're in high school? What's it called?
SATs.
SATs. Yeah. So when you write your SATs, I was just so I was like, what the hell does this matter? Like, but it obviously it has a huge impact and it's huge information for her. And then she kind of has sits down conversation with Eugene, and that's when Eugene kind of brings up Rudy,
Mm-hmm.
and as maybe a bigger player than they might feel. So I don't know if it's in this episode or the next one where she goes and revisits her former law office and kind of starts going through their program, seeing what she can pull out about Desire and someone named Rudy. And she soon finds out that Little Mo has a parole officer named Rudy. I forget his last name, but it's Rudy,
Mm-hmm.
and she soon finds out that he's a pretty big detective on the New Orleans unit.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Exactly. Yeah. So she's doing some digging. This is towards the tail end of the episode. She becomes a bigger figure in the last one, but she's getting information she needs and to prove that Kofi did not do it. And I think it ultimately would help. It would hurt Carlo at the same time because why would he go and try to kill Carlo if he didn't kill Rocco? It wouldn't make much
Yeah.
sense, right? Um, so that happens. The last scene of the episode is Franny's sitting alone at a bar, grading papers or something, and Charlie, who's the judge's best friend, he's running to be mayor, comes up to her. He starts talking about you know her being a teacher, and then she kind of says, "Are you flirting with me or what?" And he goes right into interrogation mode, and he says, "It's really good to have good teachers around here, but I'm going to be the mayor in about a week. If you tell Adam you'll never be a teacher here again, and I'll make sure basically, you'll never teach again. Some bad stuff is going to happen to you, and or I'm going to tell people that you slept with Adam, and you're going to go to jail for the rest of your life, and you'll rot in there." And
Yeah.
clearly, she's rocked by this news, but she says it's not healthy for his mental health. It's not good for him to keep a secret like this in. A 17-year-old killing another 17-year-old boy, he can't keep that in forever. And this is breaking news to Charlie because he had no idea that Adam killed Rocco.
Yeah, this is huge. He's kind of the first real person outside this bubble of Franny, Jimmy Baxter, and of course Adam and Michael to find
Yeah.
out about this. I just love how Charlie he goes from this super nice
Mm-hmm.
baby kissing future
Politician.
mayor, yeah, to an absolute like a really dark character so easily. I know he's not a main character in the show, but obviously when he comes to these scenes, I just think it's so interesting, and he's really pushing it because he wants to help Adam, like it's like he said, like he doesn't want Adam to get in trouble, and all Adam told him was, yeah, like I have two girlfriends, one's my teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the only reason that Charlie tried to push her away, and clearly comes back with bigger information than maybe he intended for.
Yeah. He wanted to just scare her and kind of make her go away. and she tells him the biggest information of the show. So yeah, he's got some new leverage, and yeah, he's obviously going to play a role in the finale. But yeah, so that's episode 9. It kind of ends with Charlie finding that out. It's big news, and we're kind of setting it up for the trial. That's kind of episode 10. 90% of the episode is about the trial. And the episode starts again. I think the scene, I don't know why the scene had to be included, but the judge's mother-in-law told Adam that his mother was having an affair. And I don't know why. He goes by himself, and then he goes and hugs his dad, and they kind of talked about his mother and how he cracked her rib one time, giving her a big hug when she was pregnant. But it's a strange scene that they started with this plot line where it's not really even a plot line of the show.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that Adam's not even mad, like he's just like, oh yeah, like, well, if I were in your shoes, I would have done the same thing, Dad.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, like it, like, and all that for him not to even be a little bit upset, and then after that, it just feels useless.
Yeah, it falls on deaf ears the rest of the episode because it doesn't come up again, really. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, this
Yeah,
happened.
and same with her character, the
The
aunt, or
mother-in-law, yeah.
yeah, the mother-in-law, like I don't know, but like after she tells him that, like, I'm like, she's not in the rest of the episode
No,
either. So it's kind of like, what is going on with this?
she had that one big episode, and other than that, she wasn't even in the show. Like, she didn't have an impact.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. It's just weird. So yeah, I kind of went through this episode 9 with Big Mo tells Lee that Kofi took the car the day after Rocco was killed. So she kind of does that digging. So we'll start with Carlo taking the stand. And obviously, like you said, he's the key witness. He said he was terrified, said Kofi had murder in his eyes, and he just had to defend himself. But Kofi, was the aggressor. He shut the door when he came in. He eye gouged him, punched him 4 times, and then grabbed him by the balls and started to put pressure on them. And it just kept hurting his balls more and more until he was able to hit Kofi's head against the wall 4 to 6 times.
Yeah. Yeah, his lawyer does a fantastic job of painting it in the way that makes it look like self-defense, even edging him on with these questions. And it makes, like, if you were a jury member, you might even believe it a little bit or a lot, depending on how naive you were. But yeah, I mean, like, let's be honest, Juggy, if someone came up and grabbed your balls, doesn't matter how big they are, not your balls, but how big the person is,
Yeah.
you'd be able to swat it away pretty easily. Let's be honest. It's not like they're in a position of power.
Yeah. I mean, if the one hand's down there, you got 2 hands up top, you can give them a shot.
And the fact that it's Kofi too, that's who you brought up's 100 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah. And Carlo's got to at least be, I'd say he's at least 50 pounds heavier than Kofi.
Yeah, I would even say probably closer upwards to 2.
Yeah. He's
200 pounds anyway.
Yeah, he's at least 200 pounds. Kofi, was built like a runner, you see it in the marathon runner. He's kind of built like him, like just so skinny.
Yeah.
So he says that, and he said it was traumatizing. But the big thing he said was that Kofi was never unconscious. He walked out of the cell on his own power. And this was different because it was interesting because he kind of says this, and he goes on. You could tell the jury was kind of feeling for him, but prosecution also has a good lawyer, and she wasn't taking any of this bullshit. She says, "So Carlo, did you see a doctor after the altercation?" And he goes, "No, like I didn't." She goes, "Why? If your balls were in that much pain, like why didn't you go see somebody?" He goes, "Well, I just didn't." And that was fine. And they're kind of like, move on. Like, what's the nature of this question? And she goes, "So you're saying that Kofi shut the door of your cell that night?" And Carlo said, yeah, like, yeah, I swear to God, like, yeah, he did. And she says, well, he walked out, right? And he goes, yeah. Well, she goes, did you know that the cell doors do not open at OPP? They have to be opened by the outside after being locked. And this was a big uppercut to Carlo and the defense's stand and their position, because clearly he was lying.
Yeah, and his whole first spiel, especially was going over with his lawyer, very confident, very brusque. You
Yeah.
know, even though he is, I guess, faking being, terrified and trying to relive that awful moment where he killed somebody. It is, you know, it's in that moment that he probably got too caught up in what he was saying, and he's making this stuff up, like closing the door after he says, oh, Kofi, after Kofi was done, he closed the door and he left. Well, they showed a video, and clearly Kofi walks in and walks out without ever touching the door.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
So yeah.
exactly. And so he's kind of backpedaling, and he says, what? And the lawyer's like, is it possible that you forgot it, like that night with all the trauma? And he goes, oh, yeah. That's definitely possible.
Mhm.
And, but, the prosecution's just basically saying, I rest my case, Your Honor. Like, I got this video. He's clearly a liar. He's killed before. And as she walks away, Carlo yells out, "Yo, tell that to that stupid cunt." And she she didn't take that well, because she she came back right at him and basically called him out for everything he is as a person, and what the Baxter family represent.
Yeah, she's a firecracker if I've ever seen one. She's a good lawyer, and it's worth noting that Lee Delamere actually goes to the prison and
Right.
tries that door. So she's got backup in the sense that Lee wants to see justice just as much.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, and I mean, it's also worth noting their conversation the last episode that she asked Eugene if he would testify, if as a witness, you know, to of being with Kofi or something to do with Kofi. Kind of making it known, like you said, that Kofi couldn't have killed Rocco that day,
Hmm.
leading to a non-motive for Rocco to, or sorry, for Carlo to kill Kofi.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. And so this is all happening. We don't know really how the trial is going to keep going, but at this time, Nancy Costello and Lee are basically working together. And Lee kind of tells Nancy the information. She runs with it. She decides to go to the cemetery where the judge's wife is buried, and she talks to the homeless guy who was a veteran, and he was there the day that the judge and Adam visited, and they kind of made some jokes with him so that he'd remember them if he was asked to testify. And she connects with him because she had family in the military, and he kind of talks about his decisions. And they say, did you see a father and son here on October 9th? And he says, no, they weren't here on the 9th. And he goes, because he said, you sure he wasn't here on the 9th? And he goes, no, they were here on the 10th. And she goes, well, how do you know that verbatim? And he goes, that was the day of this huge massive thing in Vietnam where I lost so many friends in an explosion. Like, I'll never forget that day. And I remember those guys being here on October 10th, not the 9th.
Yeah, and it's so funny because Michael, whether this is just ignorance, he did all that believing that that veteran would have no idea what day it
Right.
was that he
Yes.
went there, and so this completely comes back to bite him on the ass. And after this scene, we see Nancy kind of almost interrogating Michael a little bit in his office in the courtroom, and finally I think he has to leave, but it's pretty evident that she knows, and I think she even says like your anger and your frustration clearly are signs of lying. Like that's a telltale sign of lying.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I can't deal with this. I gotta go.
Right. Yeah, he leaves, and because he says, if you're asking me something, ask me it. Don't say I did something that I didn't do.
Hmm.
And so Charlie actually came in the room, or he came in, they leave, but then he talks to Nancy after the fact, And he says, I'm probably going to be the mayor in 10 days. Like, I think it's a good idea when I become mayor that I get rid of all the rat cops around here, the dirty ones, and, we could do it together. But he said, I don't know if we can. I'd like to do it with you, but I think you should keep this little secret between us, because otherwise, like, you're fired, basically.
Yeah. Well, and you can tell Nancy's is a very honorable person. Like, if you were a friend, she'd probably be a really good friend as well. But at the same time, like, obviously, where we're looking at the protagonist as Michael, and we're kind of rooting for him, or if some people are watching this, they're maybe not rooting for him. You kind of want Nancy to, find out less or not find out at all. And now that she knows, I mean, what, like, here's Charlie coming to save the day again, just like he did with Franny. Kind of
Right.
see him picking up the pieces for Adam, and you could tell that he's a good godfather because clearly he cares for Adam.
Right. Yeah. He cares for Michael and Adam so much because he's willing to do whatever he can in his power to help them. And he's got a lot of influence because he's going to be the mayor, and people respect him. He's got connections to Desire. So he's got a lot of ins. So Lee was going to get Eugene to testify. To your point about Rudy, that Kofi couldn't have been there that day because of, Rudy as a cop and all the things that happened that day. He was taking his GED. They go to him, and it was impossible. He was at the jail. He was in jail the day it happened, right? So it couldn't have been him.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes to the judge with kind of this information, said it couldn't have been Kofi that killed Rocco. It was not Desire. It was not a Desire hit, because she talked to Big Mo and she said it wasn't Desire. And Lee thought, who could have been that day? And she thinks at first that it's the judge that did it. And she's looking at Michael like, you did it. You're the one that killed Rocco Baxter.
Yeah.
But Eugene actually silences this thought, because he comes in, he says, yeah, that's the guy that came to my house the morning of my mother's trial. And he's like, yeah, I was there that morning. And Lee says, well, who would have access to the car? And then she finally pencils it in. She knows it's Adam.
Yeah. It's a wild scene.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing at first, because you're like, okay, and then Eugene comes in, and then he puts it to bed that it's not the judge, and then it only leaves one person. Whose car is it? It's Adam's. And she's like, it's Adam. That's who did it, not you. It's Adam.
Yeah. And Michael, you see him now, he's just doing everything in his power to get Lee. He even tells Lee he loves her.
Yeah.
And she slaps him in the face because, how if you're her, you must feel so betrayed from everything, from, going to defend Kofi to, helping out this family. She even says, you're the reason that 4 innocent people, a
Right.
family, is dead.
Yeah.
And, he's like, yeah, and in the defense with him, and not that I will defend him that much, but he's doing everything for his son now. Now that she knows that it's Adam, he's like, oh, I'm sorry, but like everything I did was to protect. Well, yeah, exactly. It was to protect Adam and to make sure that he wasn't going to die, because let's be honest, if he would have went in there, he was going to die.
Yeah, instantly.
And then he also goes on a tangent. He says that, what's it worth having 2 17-year-old boys dead now? Like, what?
The guilt trip. Yeah.
Well, it is. And like, that's what he's trying to do, because he's like, Lee, like Nancy, is a very honorable woman. And you can tell that right from the start by her, spending so much time with Kofi and being on this Kofi case. So I think that he knows that it's going to be very difficult, and I guess I'll let you say it, but she kind of gives him a final decision on what to do.
Yeah. So she says, I'm not going to rat out Adam. I'm not going to do that. But she basically says, you got to let Carlo Baxter take the hit here, and your soul will be cleansed. And it's not exactly the truth, because again, the wrong person, he did kill Kofi, but Kofi would still technically would be dead, but he'd have a murder charge on his record, for murdering Rocco. But she wants obviously Carlo to get the guilty plea, obviously, and so they leave that weird dynamic where she basically thinks the judge is the devil, this terrible person, and she's not wrong because she's figured it out that he's been masquerading as this great guy for a long period of time. But the judge is also, he's got a dilemma because he knows if he convicts Carlo, he's probably dead, and maybe Adam too.
Yeah, exactly. And for Lee, all she wants is to bring Eugene to the stand.
Yes.
And that's what she's there for. She's like, if I get Eugene on the stand, we'll be able to prove that Kofi was not, it couldn't have been the driver that day, and that he couldn't have killed Rocco. So it ultimately comes down to this. I don't know if it's before or after this, Juggy, where Jimmy and Gina find out about Adam.
It's when they play the video. I think they deny Eugene, then they do that final thing before the jury comes up with their decision. That's when he starts to wheeze.
Okay.
He gets the inhaler out.
Right. Yes. And like you said, it comes down to it that, the judge is on there. Everyone's watching him because he's either going to allow or deny Eugene to take the stand. And just in that split moment, Adam is in the courthouse, and I think Jimmy does something or gives Adam a look in the sense that, okay, I know that that's your son.
Yeah.
You better make the right call here, or else.
Just looks at him for a half second, then looks at the judge like, don't try me here. Like,
don't play.
Yeah, don't play. Yeah.
And in that moment, the judge overrules it and says, the prosecution is done, and Eugene will not be able to take the stand.
Yeah.
In that moment, Delamere just kind of gets up and flees out of frustration.
Right.
They have their own little scene.
Yeah. So she takes off. And like you said, Adam's in the courtroom at this time because he wants to be close to his dad, I think, because they kind of had that little emotion about their mother and whatever. But he's there. Fia's there too. They're not sitting together though, but they kind of share a glance as they walk by. And they play the 911 video, and you can hear the wheezing, and it's Adam, not Rocco. It's just it's him, not having his inhaler. So he gets uncomfortable with it. He leaves the courtroom. Gina Baxter was already outside the courtroom because she was just, emotional. Jimmy goes outside to check on her, and they see Adam taking the inhaler, and they know at that point it's not the judge. He's the killer. Again, Adam, all his secrets are coming out one by one here at the tail end of the show.
Yeah, everything he did to protect himself from finding, or everything he did to protect Adam from Jimmy finding out that it was him, not the judge, just goes to shit at this point.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like a sweet serenity, I guess. Like it just almost feels right.
Right. Yeah. And there's another point. This really didn't have a huge role in the show, but the judge wrote in the jury notes and forwards that a juror was not being partial. It didn't really have a huge part on the end of the episode, but
no.
So they find out about the inhaler, but the big point of the episode obviously is what the jury's gonna rule here, and the judge has really done everything he can to try to sway them to rule in favor of Carlo.
Yeah.
And the jury found Carlo not guilty, and he's innocent of crimes, and he's going to be freed. What did you make of that decision by the writers to make him be not guilty? And what did you think of that decision?
I think, well, we'll get into it later, but I think it's almost kind of funny. But in the sense, this is a close, like in real life scenario, Juggy, this is a shut and close case.
Yeah.
Like there's no doubt that, even with the lack of evidence that the judge, keeps denying over the course of the whole thing, anyone could see that this guy clearly killed him, and the writing's on the wall.
Mm-hmm. No.
But
Yeah.
for the writers, I mean, it comes into play later on throughout the episode. But I mean, I think it's kind of like the judge reaching his goal, and that his goal was to make sure that Carlo got off,
Mhm.
and that feeling of safety that, okay, well, Jimmy will keep his promise now. Like he won't touch my family, or he
Mhm.
won't try to kill me.
Right.
What did you think?
Yeah, because I knew before that it was the series finale and there wasn't gonna be a second season. I think they could have made it more interesting if he was found guilty because we see what happens anyway, and I think something bad's gonna happen to Adam regardless. Like he's gonna get vengeance from somebody, and obviously, I think Jimmy was gonna try to kill him regardless of the ruling. Obviously, if Carlo goes to jail, he's gonna be pissed, but he knows that Adam killed his son. He's gonna kill him anyway. If he's near him, he's gonna take him out.
Yeah, so uh, that's done. Obviously, the Baxter family is just rejoicing. They're so happy.
Mhm.
And the judge is probably like, this is the weight off my shoulders. One thing I will mention, after it's announced, he kind of looks at Jimmy, and they have a slight eye contact. But as they do that, he looks to the prosecuting judge, and she's looking right at him like, yeah, I can get a feeling here. There's
Yeah.
clearly something bigger going on, and there's no words exchanged, but just that look, you can tell just with that one look.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, she clearly knows that something's afoot here,
Yeah.
and she. I think that's something that would have been investigated if the show went on. Maybe that could have been a plot line, but so that happens. They're they're gonna set like you said. They're celebrating the Baxters, and Jimmy says to Fia, "Invite Adam. I want to meet him, and be great to have him here." Adam, being the idiot that he is, says, "Yeah, yeah, sure. Like I'll go to the hotel." Doesn't tell his dad. Turns off his phone when he gets there, and Jimmy calls the judge, and he says, "Hey, I got your son in here, and I think you should come down here and watch while I kill him, basically." And
Yeah.
it's yeah, he says, "I see him. He's right in the window, right next to me, and I'm gonna hurt him. So I hope you get down here soon enough so you can watch it." And the judge obviously freaks out. He's got a car that's kind of double parked, so he can't leave his driveway. So he's running down to the Baxter Hotel, and the guards won't let him in. He's trying to get to Adam, but he doesn't know he can't get in there. However, at the same time, Eugene obviously was distraught with the verdict. His brother is now seen as a murderer. He knows he didn't do it. Obviously, that's a frustrating thing. He knows that Carlo killed his brother. That's not easy to deal with, of course. And he's walking down to the hotel, and Michael's kind of putting up this big fuss with the guards, and Eugene kind of sneaks in, and
Mm.
he's he's sitting there. He's kind of standing in the middle of everybody. Carlos talking to people. Adam and Fia are chatting, and he pulls out a gun out of his pants. And obviously, I was thinking, okay, he's gonna shoot Carlo. That's what's gonna happen. However, he shoots Carlo. It's not like he moved. I think he just kind of missed the shot. I mean, he's a little kid. He hasn't shot much, and the bullet catches Adam right here, right in the side of the throat, and that's not a good place to get shot because you're gonna start bleeding. He starts bleeding profusely, and for me, Shay, it was like Rocco. It was very similar. He started to wheeze just like Rocco did, and he ultimately died very similar.
Yeah, poetic justice, I thought. Um, no, it was crazy. At first, I'm like, oh, finally, like Eugene. It's almost weird. You feel like almost happy that Eugene is getting his revenge. It's just this buildup of bad things happening to him. His brother dies, his family dies.
Mhm.
He's being taken in. He's a chance to get redemption. He's denied that by the judge. So in a way, this all comes into circle when you think about it, right? Because yeah, like, okay, so Adam killed Rocco, but at the same time, Adam and the judge end up kind of killing Kofi unrelatedly. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
So so isn't it only fitting that Eugene, Kofi's brother, ends up being the one to act, even though it's an accident, still ends up killing Adam.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's so true. And Eugene had a right to kill about everybody in there,
Yeah.
because they
Oh
screwed him
yeah.
at one point or another. But yeah, I wrote it was a complete tour de force where we see a 180 from episode 1 till now. A complete circle of life here, and the judge runs in, grabs Adam, but he's basically dead before he gets there. And Adam, the series ends with Adam dying in the judge's arms, and ultimately the judge and Jimmy Baxter, very different characters, both end up losing sons, and Eugene loses his entire family. But I didn't see that coming as the last part of the show for sure.
Yeah, I think it takes a huge surprise. I mean, I think the most shocking and obviously the craziest part of you could say the whole show happens within the last two minutes of the show, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it ends with Jimmy Baxter losing a son, or it starts with Jimmy Baxter losing a son, and ultimately it comes in where I find it funny looking back at it, Juggy. So if it would have ended with Carlo going to jail, obviously they would have been celebrating
Right.
at the hotel, which means that Eugene would have no reason to go there.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's where I thought that was kind of humorous in the sense that the writers let him go be a free man, but clearly it ends up costing Michael everything.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, he lets Carlo walk, and that decision killed his son.
Yeah.
See, this is the end of the series, so we got to assume that obviously Eugene would have been arrested for murder. Yeah, who knows what would happen with the judge and everything, but yeah, it was an okay show. I think the whole Desire Gang and Jimmy Baxter, they could have done more with that. I thought some of the plot lines were unnecessary, but it was a fair show. I didn't think it was great. I didn't think it was terrible. Somewhere in between for me.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same bound as you. I told you before we started, it's probably not a show I'll rewatch. If I really love a show and I really, really love a show, I'll rewatch it. But this, it was good, and maybe I don't know. I haven't seen this online. Do you think that they'll make a second season, or do you think this is it?
No, they've already announced that this is it.
So this is the full thing, because just the way the show ended in this final episode, there was just so many loose plot lines, like
Yeah.
Robin and Robin cheating on the judge.
Yeah.
You got Charlie and Nancy. Are they going to clean up the city? It's
Mhm.
like you said, Eugene. He's now on the run, and obviously you could easily see the judge coming back with vengeance.
Yeah.
Yeah, or Carlo. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of ways it could have took it. So I didn't know, but yeah. So if that's it, I mean, it really obviously degrades the thing. And I think we both kind of gave it like I would give it anywhere between a 4 and a 6 out of 10 for me.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
But yeah, it just kind of trailed off towards the end for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Last couple episodes just didn't hit for me as much. I thought the courtroom scenes were pretty good. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more action, because I think there could have been, and it would have been entertaining to see. But yeah, this is another show we get through next. We get through Your Honor. We're 2 shows into our series here. So obviously everything we watch is up to you. And I gave you the option that if you want to name the show we're watching next this week, or we could do it next week after we do maybe we could do a hockey podcast next Tuesday. So what do you want to do?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't have anything definitive, because I thought of something today when you asked me. I thought, anyone listening, if you had any suggestions,
Mhm.
like leave them in the comments below, or, even reach out to Juggy or myself personally, and just, maybe if there's something out there you'd want to see. But I think, yeah, we'll take a breather from maybe from the shows, and we'll just have like a sports podcast next week. We could do like an MLB preview or something, or hop back into the NHL and see how those standings are going.
Sure.
But and we'll see, and if nothing's definitive, then I'll have something kind of lined up at the end of next week's episode, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I like that. We'll give him a week to think about it. He'll come up with a great new selection for us to watch here.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you got on the go the rest of the week, Shay?
But before we go with that, Juggy, I just want to say I didn't know I did, and this is probably me just not paying attention. But did you know that Bryan Cranston directed the show?
Yeah, I saw you directed the last episode.
Yeah. Oh, so it was just the last episode. It
I
wasn't throughout
think
the whole
I
show.
think he might have did two. I'm not sure. I think he did
Ah,
two episodes. Yeah,
okay. Nice to see him doing a little bit of that too, because I mean he's a great mind, and obviously sometimes these great actors turn out to be like you think
yeah.
of a.
He actually directed an episode of The Office in the last season.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's I don't know. Which episode was it?
I forget now. I'll have to
Oh,
look it
that's
up. But
interesting.
yeah, he directed an episode of The Office towards the tail end of the show.
Yeah, you just think of like Clint Eastwood, obviously
Mhm.
being like one of the best. I don't think he gets noted enough for being an amazing director, along with being
For sure.
a
Yeah.
phenomenal actor. Um, you know, so I just think of stuff like that. Maybe Cranston will get something onto that level where he's kind of both acting and directing in some of his movies as well.
Yeah, kind of like Jason Bateman in
Yeah.
Ozark. He's getting into that as well. But yeah, obviously Tuesday here, short week with Family Day. But what's on the docket the rest of the week, Shay?
For me, it's just kind of grinding out with work. Still really busy, but at the same time, gotta loosen up. I'd like to hit the slopes here soon, Juggy. I don't often go, but I kind of get the fever to go out and do something active. So
Hmm.
I don't know. These next couple weeks, you could find me breaking an ankle on the slope, just like Joey was at the beginning of the ninth episode.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Other than that, just a couple pints. Watch the Leafs blow
Oof.
leads like it's their day job, and that's that's about it, buddy. What about you?
Yeah, just work and I think this weekend I think I'm gonna podcast with our friend Aaron Brown. So we're gonna talk
Oh,
some hockey. So I think he's gonna make his first appearance on here. So that should be fun to see Brownie live from Quebec. But yeah, just podcast tomorrow, podcast Thursday, couple shows Friday, doing one with Craig Friday night, probably another interview in store. Not sure with who yet, but I'll keep you posted.
sweet.
Yeah, just the podcast and work and watch sports when I get a couple hours in between.
Oh, well, if you can fit it in a couple times.
Yeah.
I took your advice. I started PVRing some of the games now so
Oh,
that
I
I can
like
go
it.
back and watch them.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's nice, and the fact that you can skip all those shitty commercials people come up
Yes.
with.
That's the biggest thing is get through a
I
game
didn't
in
realize.
an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you actually factor out like the intermission shows and the actual um, commercials, it's unbelievable how short a game actually is.
Yeah, no, but no, it's great. If you get out the slopes this week, obviously good luck. And I know you and Kennedy are celebrating 2 years together this weekend. So congratulations
Thank
to
you.
both of you and
Get
enjoy
that.
yourselves.
Yes. And one thing before we go, to all you parents out there, to all you future parents, and to people listening, if you ever get in a hit and run, do not fucking drive away, because
No,
that'll be the end of your life pretty much. You get a
yes,
criminal record and you're just dog water afterwards.
yeah. Do not run away or do not call 911.
Yeah, I've wanted to say that every episode that we've had this, but I figured I was already too deep, and I was like, I'll just leave it for the very end.
Yeah, no, I like it's a good message. Accept it, deal with it. That's going to be the better in the long run for you. But no, everybody have a great week. I'll be back tomorrow night. But for me and Shamus, we'll be back next Tuesday to talk some sports. So until then, everybody take care and we'll talk soon.